Home Life. It's Home Plus Life Podcast. We're not here to just talk about the latest trends. We're gonna break through the myths and put some facts on the table. Cause when it comes to real estate, you need to be well informed. So now it's time to get serious and talk market trends. Here we go. Sure enough, we'll go down a rabbit hole and talk about something cool that has caught our attention. It's JTM. Welcome everybody, let's dive right in.
Hey.
All right, so we got an episode you've wanted to do for a while today.
Cool.
Because you've wanted to corner a buyer's agent and ask them a whole lot of questions. So I've gone out and found a genuine Australian unicorn in a buyer's agent who happens to be someone that I've actually travelled various parts of the world with. He's one of the best people to be on tour with. So we'll introduce him in a little bit, but we are going to put a genuine Aussie buyer's agent on the spot and ask some cool questions to see exactly how they do what they do and what they do in the Australian market. But first, how about we have a word from our sponsors?
Sure.
Ready to sell your home? Don't make the rookie mistake of jumping in blind. The first step on your journey is critical. Research. You need to know what your house is really worth to get the best deal. And that's where checkmyhouseprice.com.au comes in. With a free house price report, you'll get all the juicy market intel, recent sales data, and other must-have info to help you win big when selling your home. Don't gamble on your home's worth. Make checkmyhouseprice.com.au the first step in your successful selling journey. Visit us today and get your free house price report.
All right, let's do this. Introducing our third guest ever on the podcast,
Ooh.
Mr. Luke Moroney from Search Party Property. Hey, Luke, how you doing?
Yeah, great guys. How are you?
Yeah,
Good. Now, just a little bit about Luke. Luke is far and away. I've travelled the States with Luke, and we've been to various real estate conferences and that sort of thing. He is one of the best people to be on the road with, right? You are going to get up to shenanigans if Luke's around. It's lot of fun.
Yeah, are you blaming him for the shenanigans you've gotten up to? Or...
No.
Or are you quite willing to take the crown for that and just be like, no, it was
you
me?
just got to have some fun. Like it's work hard, play harder, right?
Absolutely.
I like that thinking.
Yeah. No, he gets you out of your shell.
Good.
And he leads the way with that.
I like it.
You know, there's stories that we can't talk about on the podcast, but you know, Luke's a bit of a legend. He's awesome, and there's a reason we call him the Aussie Unicorn, but I can't even explain that one on the podcast.
Yeah, no, don't explain that.
But he is a legend, and he is a real life, genuine buyer's agent in Australia. Now, in the States where we spend a lot of time, you know, buyer's agents are a dime a dozen. In fact, they make up 50% of the 2.3 million agents that they have over there. In Australia, there's far less, isn't there, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely. The numbers are growing in Australia, definitely on the back of what's happening in the US, TV shows that, advocate for buyer's agents, buyer's advocates. So people are understanding, the greater value on having someone on your side as a buyer rather than going to do it all on your own.
I think that's a huge point there, actually, because we've talked in the past about the agent typically works for the seller. They've got a legal responsibility and a fiduciary responsibility to work in the best interest of the seller. The buyer's agent is the buyer's best friend. You're working for the buyer, aren't you, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, we want to be going out there and maybe we're even working with some of those agents who don't tend to try and work too much for the sellers at times and just want to get a deal done. And for our responsibility is, to get out there for the buyer, get the best deal possible. So not only they can buy one, but they're looking to buy multiple properties and build a property portfolio, which I've been able to do myself.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So
cool.
I think we've kind of touched on it here, but the real question I want to ask you straight off the top, Luke, and the reason I want to ask this is I think that there's a lot of people out in the marketplace who don't really understand what the buyer's agent's role is, how a buyer's agent gets paid, or what value the buyer's agent brings to the table. So could you sort of give us a little bit of insight into what value it is a buyer's agent does actually bring to the table?
Yeah, look, I think the big one is around looking at the property market itself. Like a lack of research for people. They're not knowing the data, the areas, the property and the deals that we're privy to each and every day. So, there's a combination of on-market and off-market deals that we work on. We're getting that inside word on deals where we're just finding out, okay, what's the seller's motivation on certain situations, or they need to sell really quickly. You need to, get put an offer in now, or we might be a sense sometimes of actually knowing what the another offer is because we've worked with the agent a number of times. So being first to the punch on a lot of these things is the big value add for a lot of people. I guess the areas that people don't know and see the true value is the time and efficiency that we put in, because we're not only doing this for that one deal, but we're doing this every day. We're working on deals on a constant basis, and we've done it for multiple years as well. So, you build up those relationships with agents over time and you can get better deals done. And I guess people also forget about the time that we spend on the strategy aspect of it as well for people. And just thinking about, well, if you go that way and try and find a property that's got development potential, it's going to cause you a lot of repairs and maintenance because it's an older house on a bigger block and the cash flow is lower. So it's really going to harm you in the short term. And it's those people that it harms in the short term, they end up selling in a year or two time and they make a loss on that property instead of buying something nice, simple and easy, let the market grow, get the tenants in place, make it simple and easy for yourself, especially on property number 1 or 2, and then, start to develop your skills over time. So there are a number of different value add components that we provide as a buyer's agent. And there are a few to name.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's also you're the mouthpiece because of the representing the real estate industry to be able to decipher some of the jargon as well that real estate agents come out with, and the person sitting there going, I have no idea what you're actually talking about, but sounds like a good plan. Whereas with a buyer, if it's the first time that they've bought, like talking to a real estate agent, having, mum and dad or someone else in the background going, oh, you're getting ripped off, but aren't actually going to say, okay, so what are the things that I'm being ripped off with? What should I be looking at? All of those types of things. I suppose you can step in and go, let me take you under my wing and let me show you what your parents may be saying is actually happening. But, when they sold their house 40 years ago, kind of sort of a bit different than what it is now. So I suppose
there's a number of different aspects around that. Like there might be, let's get a discount on the property from listing price. And that a lot of the listing prices out there are actually less than what they're looking to gain from the property. So sometimes in a strong market, paying listing price when they've actually put that at a low figure actually makes a lot of sense. So, and it might mean that you miss out on the deal because you are trying to get that $20,000, $50,000 discount because you want a discount. But it's a discount to what the agent's valuing it at, or the seller potentially is valuing at as well, to bring around those hordes of people into the open inspection. So you've got to see through, some of those ideas and thoughts that the agents might have and bring it towards where, a buyer can make a really good deal on. So, there are examples where some agents are really difficult to deal with. So if we can, through that. Yeah, we can get through that aspect of them being difficult. We can get a deal done. Whereas most buyers will go, oh, it's all a bit too hard. I'm not going to deal with that agent. I'll go and find another property. But there could be so much that you can achieve through it by just pushing through. And that's where we do the work on it. We're like the arm's length, in between, what our buyer is and what the seller and the agent are looking to achieve out of the property. So that does help with the negotiations as well, because people are often so emotional, even with investments, when it comes to property.
Yeah, well, I mean,
absolutely.
It's the biggest purchase, really.
Yeah.
Apart from children.
I don't know. I think with our housing market, the houses are getting more expensive than children these days.
Probably.
But I mean, you touched on something too earlier, Luke. Like, it was one of my favourite pieces of advice that I would hear from older parents talking to kids who are buying, or talking to even our age group and slightly older than us. If we had boomer parents, they'd be saying never pay list price, never pay list price.
Say that quickly 10 times.
Yeah, right. And I haven't had anything to drink in weeks. But they're going and put an offer in that's 10 or 5% beneath list price and then wonder why they missed out on the property, and the property sold for 10% above list price.
Especially when you have an agent that turns around and says, put in your best offer.
Yeah.
And we had one agent tell us that he had been frustrated by getting that. He works in the industry, and he found out that he missed out on the property by $500.
He had an extra 20 grand to spend.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
that goes
coming
into
from an
negotiation
insider.
tactics as well. Like, you don't go and, offer $500,000 on the mark. You go at $500,000 and $500.
Yeah.
Those simple little tactics just to make sure, if you're in that situation to be on a multiple offer situation, then you've just put that little bit extra on there. And if you miss out, you miss out. Like, obviously that person had the budget, but then didn't go ahead and put their best and final offer on it. So it's how much it means to you on that property. Like, for investors that we tend to work with, then it's about the numbers game. So if we go too high on a property, doesn't make any sense. Let's let that go. Let's go for another deal. And that's, just keeps the emotion as much out of it. And that's what we do as well. Like, I guess in terms of buying, I'm in there looking to get the deal. It's about those numbers, and that's it. There's no emotion attached to it. But
Well,
like,
there isn't. You're spending someone else's money. No, only joking.
But then, we're in an aspect of getting multiple deals on, like, that's the thing that people might say. I was like, well, it's not about you, but it is about us as well.
Yeah.
Like, we're in a team, work together. We're looking to not only buy one for a client, but build up the portfolio. And we've got multiple buyers that have done multiple properties in their portfolio already in the last 2 or 3 years. So that's been astounding.
Yeah, right. So do you work primarily with investors? Do you also work with owner-occupiers as well? Like, what would be the makeup of your client base?
Yeah, it's 95% investors, and then there's a couple of owner-occupier properties that we do, but they're far and few between. It's just time that goes involved in an owner-occupier. There are specific buyers agents that do target the owner-occupier market. You again, a little bit slightly different skill set, obviously also a slightly different personality as well. I think of myself as never being able to be a real estate agent because I don't have that same personality as as a lot of real estate agents or selling agents out there. I like to work on the buying side.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I imagine too, like, working predominantly with investors, that's, as you mentioned before, it's really numbers driven, isn't it? Like, there's no emotion. It is, does this work in terms of the spreadsheet and what we're trying to achieve? And if the numbers are wrong, you walk away because the numbers are wrong.
Yeah, that's all right. And we're just looking at deals on a constant basis. We're probably going through a few hundred deals a week just to come up with 3 or 4 or 5 that are going to be making a lot of sense for clients. And then from there, once we have an idea on price, then we'll go and negotiate and see how low we can get the deal done. So, that's a big advantage for us to be doing deals on a constant basis as well.
So does an investor come to you and be like, look, this is the area that I'm looking in because insiders have told me that whatever, that should be somewhere that I should buy because whatever is happening, there's huge construction, whatever. And you then go, all right, how many bedrooms, what sort of and then build from there as to what price they would be looking at? Or do they come to you and go, look, I need a house that I'm going to be there in 5 years' time. It needs to house 4 of us. What can you find me that will be bringing me income until I can actually move there? Do you have those? Is it that type of conversation or what sort of...
Yeah, the conversations pretty much go, I'm looking to buy an investment property. My accountants told me to buy something. I've got a bit of equity now in my own home. I want to be in a position to build my portfolio. I'm 40. I've got 10 years before, I want to retire. I want to start building on it. So that's the initial conversations. They do need to get in touch with a mortgage broker to find out about what their, budget restraints are. So it gives us a bit of an idea once we go into the strategy piece to say, okay, what is your budget? and what are the potential investments that you could make. So,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people do come in and, you know, have been to a barbecue or have got an uncle or something that tells them you got to buy in Sydney. It's the best place, capital growth, da, da, da.
Yeah.
But then we look into deep diving into their situation. They go, well, they want a little bit of cash flow coming through, and Sydney market's predominantly more of a capital growth play than a cash flow play. And it doesn't suit a lot of people. So you've got just say $1 million property purchase, and you're only getting rent of maybe $650, $700 a week, where it's quite negative on the property. But if you go to some of the other areas of the country where you can, you know, buy something for $550,000 and get $550 to $600 a week rent, it makes a lot more sense in cash flow for people, and they can hold it. And I think where the struggle is for a lot of people in investing is not about how well the deal goes. It's like, how long can you hold the property? Both in terms of mindset, and it's like, you know, if there's any issues that come up with tenants, but then if it doesn't grow for a little bit, they just get all nervous and they go, well, it's a terrible investment, I better sell. So they sell, and a year or two later, then all this growth happens.
Yeah.
So we saw that through COVID, especially like buying in Queensland, where, you know, 12 years before on a certain investment up in the Moreton Bay area was a 3-bedroom townhouse where they were buying off the plan 12 years earlier for $340,000. We bought that same townhouse 12 years later through COVID for $218,000. And now the prices are back at 340, 360 now today, only a couple of years later. So, you know, those people lost out $120,000 on the purchase because they got nervous through COVID. And our client made, you know, $120,000 in a short amount of time, you know, post that COVID period, because they were going in buying when other people were fearful.
Yeah.
And that's always the case, isn't it? There's always opportunity to down market, whether we like it or not. There's always opportunity to down market.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the other thing too, and you know, it is making sure that you've got the right team around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think this is probably one thing that a lot of people are starting to embrace is when you're going to go and do these things, it's not a rich man's thing to go and have a buyer's agent, a selling agent, a financial advisor, a financial planner, all of those types of things actually happening behind you, while, you know, to ensure that your money is being used to its best advantage and working for you, as opposed to you working for your money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, you know, I've always been a jack of all trades. Right, I've always been spread across everything, and
a master of none. No,
100% master of none. Maybe Facebook marketing is about it, but the longer we go in this market with the way the world has gone and the rapid acceleration of, in particular, technology, but also business ideas and growth, the more important it is, I think, to be specialized and to have that specialized team behind you. You know, I've been a real estate agent. I've been a selling agent. I couldn't go and do what Luke does. I'd rather go to Luke and go, hey, Luke, you do this, right? Like, you do this part.
I don't have time for
I'll
the
handle
BS.
my part. Everyone else, you know. But we're seeing this too. Like, a lot of the most successful businesses, or particularly in real estate and real estate agency teams, you know, you've got your head agent, and then they've got a buyer manager, and they've got an admin person, and they've got a person in a role for every single task in that transaction, and that person just specializes in that. And they're able to operate far more efficiently and do far more, and then be far more successful and provide a greater level of customer service. And I think that as laymen, as buyers, sellers, as individuals in the public, I think we should be looking at what is happening in that business space and going, hey, we should have that too. Because, and I imagine the cost, and Luke, I'm going to put you on the spot in a second and ask about the cost, but the cost of doing that is probably offset and ends up being an investment with a return, rather than doing it yourself because of everything else that you lose out on, and then the things you miss because you're not an expert in that space.
Yeah.
So what would it, like, how do you get paid, Luke? Do you get paid a percentage of purchase price? Does somebody just pay you a set fee? And what sort of dollars are we talking?
Yeah, it is a set fee. We kind of went on into that model because I think if you put a commission basis, people think, well, you're not going to discount that property to the lowest possible number, because it, you know, just does affect that. We charge an initial engagement fee of $2,200. and then the balance is towards settlement. The total of those two fees is 14,000 plus GST.
Yep.
So if I think about value, if we're getting a discount on a property at $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 below where other comparable sales are, then we've had a great success on that property for a client. And I think about, not only that value at the front, but also the value once they're purchased.
Mhm.
And I go back to that example in Moreton Bay on that townhouse where clients made it in probably the first 18 months or so, where it was $120,000 above where they paid for it. Our $15,000 fee for it is little compared to what they made out of the property. And that's one investment.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Absolutely. And look, that's why I wanted to ask the question too, because I know you will negotiate more effectively on behalf of the buyer than what most buyers will in any given market. Buyers might be able to compete with you in a buyer's market purely because a selling agent's desperate to get a deal done. But in any other, and we haven't been in a buyer's market since 2010 in the GFC, and even that only lasted 18 months, 2 years truly. So we haven't seen a true buyer's market getting close to 20
I know
years,
there's
really.
going to be a hell of a lot of people that comment on that just alone.
Oh, there's
like,
going to be a lot.
Are you crazy? What was 2020?
2020 was not a buyer's market. I got the data.
2021 was starting to see, a lot more activity. So, and we saw prices jump by about 50 grand in about 3 months. So, that was probably the closest part of a buyer's market, for what you guys were saying there. And like I'd say, but then as soon as those interest rates hit and increase in 2022, you could see that starting to, pull back a lot. So, but, in saying that, we've still seen in some markets a heightened activity, even with interest rates rising. So, we're seeing some crazy prices out there for some of the properties, especially I'd say in the home buying space in more affordable markets like Brisbane and Perth, where we've been buying a lot, where they're, really done up well, owner-occupier places where you've got places like Narangba and going out Morayfield in the northern parts of Brisbane, where you've got like $900,000, $1 million properties that were once like under 500 or something similar.
And under 500 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like not even pre-COVID. Oh, if you go back 2020, 2010 kind of stuff. So obviously well and truly pre-COVID is what I'm trying to say. But if you go back to the GFC, you go, oh yeah, everything was under 500 grand. No, these properties were under 500 grand in 2019.
Yeah.
They were. Caboolture 4-bedroom houses were 360 back in 2019.
Yeah.
So
it's mental.
Yeah, and they're close to 600,000 now. So, that's a good idea about where things, have been, but also where, we've got to have a look at where the market is going as well. Like as a buyer's agent, we don't want to just focus on what the past results are. And there's a big reason why a lot of people weren't buying in Brisbane going back, 2018, 2019, even to 2020. It was like, we haven't seen any growth in Brisbane. Why would we buy there? It's like, hey, look what happened now. So, it's just the idea and the mindset of, what are the results coming up that you can achieve. So that's a big one.
And what are you guys seeing? Like I've obviously got my own theories. Of course, I'm on the other side and within market buy, we're seeing a whole lot of activity in the back end and seeing that. But, from the buyer's side of the equation, what are you guys seeing is happening in the market and where do you think it's going to go?
Low stock numbers, low buy numbers out there, so probably around the country. I think macro wise, we're seeing that there's a lack of building, international immigration on the positive. There's a potential talks around recession, some fears in the market. But
that's been going on for at least 2 years now.
Yeah, that's right. and like they're always going to be around unless something substantially happens in the marketplace where they just have interest rates stop. But I think once those interest rates stop, then we'll see a lot more buying activity happen. And if the recession does come, we're probably going to have just a delay in that buying by about 6 months. So that's probably where I see things going. We think about property as a long-term investment. So what the price is going to be in 10 or 15 or 20 years time if you're building your property portfolio today. And people forget, I like to say this a lot, it's a finance game rather than a property game. So if you get the finance, go ahead and buy. Like these affordable properties that have got good cash flow make real good sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like what you're saying. And I mean, essentially what you've talked about there without coming directly out and saying it in a really sort of direct way is we still have a supply problem. At the end of the day,
I did notice that he touched on that. I was like, I've had this
I'm like, hang on, let me get up on my
conversation
soapbox, right? Like, but there was a stat that I came across earlier this week that blew my mind, and you know, you and I have done a number of episodes on supply and demand, and that being the issue driving the housing crisis. Our number of new builds in Australia is at the same level as what it was in the 1970s. Yet our immigration has increased significantly and our population has increased significantly. So we haven't kept up with the building, and therefore the demands and the increased pressure on supply as what we've needed to.
And then I do just need to touch on, because I've only just done the episode for it on Facebook. Then we can touch on the 26,000 homes that have just vanished according to the government budget.
Yeah, we started
They're
26,000
just gone.
homes, but we never finished them, and we don't know what happened to them. So that's another one that's interesting. So, but I mean, that supply and demand problem is really underpinning everything, isn't it?
It is. It's absolutely crazy out there at the moment. And like, you know, we've got a situation where the Greens are holding back the government and in the current building, you know, numbers. Not to get political on anyone here, but it's.
Oh no, feel free.
They're not even.
I'll send you a soapbox.
Not even getting towards even what Labor want to do is not going to even be enough. That's just doing the current status, the status, you know, the status quo is. That's not going over and above what is needed. And especially if you're bringing in 300,000, 400,000 people a year.
The numbers I've heard are double that. They're talking 650, 700,000 is what they want in terms of immigration, because we have a skills shortage, as we've talked about in the past. So you've got 600, 700,000 people coming into the country that you're going to have to house, and we're still building at the same number of houses each year as what we did in the 1970s.
Yeah. Property is a no-brainer. And this is why I like to say buy, everyone. Buy.
Yeah.
No, look, I'm inclined to agree. And I think one of the biggest issues that we're going to face is there's a vicious cycle happening with the interest rate rises, because shelter, effectively housing, makes up 25% of the CPI basket that they judge inflation on, right? But it's not actually a true reflection of what's happening, because you have this supply and demand problem, which means people will literally do whatever it takes to buy a property. It's not luxury spend. It's absolutely not luxury
And then the
spend.
banks turn around and do whatever they can to make sure that people can't actually purchase, because they just don't have...
They faced a Royal Commission in recent memory as well about that. So we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, if you had more people lending, then you might be in a situation that the price is going to go up anyway. So there's more competition. So
well, that's
probably a good thing.
Do you remember how they brought out the first home buyers grant, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is going to reduce the prices. It's going to reduce the prices."
I don't know how anyone ever said that.
Everyone was going in and they're going, "Give me a house, give me a house," to the point where people were putting it in their children's names. Do you remember that? They had to bring in a law to say that they needed to be over the age of 18 or something. Well, so now I forget where I was going with this thought. You do actually have...
It drove up demand, essentially, is what you're trying to say.
But now they're going to be bringing in all of that new home buyer stuff with the reconsideration things.
Yes, it's going to open it up to, I think, 1 million more Australians on the first home buyer's guarantee or family guarantee. So it's not first home builders grant.
No. But it's giving the opportunity of people who had missed out.
They haven't increased the places yet, though, have they, Luke? I know I've just thrown you out the bus.
I'm not totally across at that. I just like, you know, anytime that they put stimulus in the economy, it's just going to help housing. They just continue to push up prices. Like, I guess they're trying to help, you know, first home buyers get into the market, or, you know, people be able to get into the market, but it's just not allowing the market to play out. And they're just not putting, the simple thing is they're not putting enough supply in the market to be able to do that.
Well,
so
that's my concern, though, is you have more people who are able to be reconsidered to build a house, but if we still got the supply and demand issue on the actual building supplies, we're still back at square one. We still don't people can still purchase a property, but they don't actually have a property because they don't have the construction pieces to put said building in place. So it's like, great, you got a block of land, but where's your house? Like, there's all of these people that are going to go into the market, but you still have the very basic fundamental foundation.
Not enough houses.
There is not, there's not the resources that are actually starting to come in.
There's not the resources to build them either.
Or the people to build them.
That's another factor. I think a lot of people aren't buying brand new property on the back of, increased build costs right now, and potential builders going bust, where, some people have lost deposits of 30, 50, 100, even more.
That's scary.
$100,000. So that's a scary thought for a lot of people. It was like, why would I, I'm going to just buy established now, get something that's 3, 10, 5, 10 years old, rather than take the risk on buying something brand new. So, that's another factor that's, really playing itself out. Are you going to get the valuation once the property is built as well? So, look, that's what we're talking about with clients on an ongoing basis, because some people love the brand new, get the depreciation, and all that sort of thing in terms of nice, simple and easy. But is it nice, simple and easy if you're building brand new? You've got issues potentially with build cost, and you've got issues with valuations, issues if it's going to be completed as well. So we're going through those strategy talks with clients, because they might come with us with an idea, and then we just steer them on another direction, or show them the pros and cons, because that can be so risky for someone who doesn't have, massive buffers in place to withstand any pain. Yeah.
I like that. I like that you've referenced buffers and that sort of thing. I think that's it. From a buyer perspective, that's a really responsible approach to ensure. And I know from discussions you and I've had in New York and things like that, it's you're not looking at just buying them one property, right? You're looking at buying them 1, 2, 3, 4, and looking after them for life. And so that's why you're taking that approach, and I applaud that. But those buffers, like with a market that is uncertain as what it is, as the one we're facing in terms of money and property. I mean, property is always going to sort of come out on top, but it's hard to get money, and all of our cost of living and everything like that are going up, and that affects everybody. It's not just tenants and that. Investors are affected by cost of living increases, fuel increases, all that sort of stuff. I think that planning that buffer and particularly strategizing, having that strategy meeting with someone who's looking to buy, where you are in fact going, hey, you don't have a big enough buffer for this, so let's shift this strategy. I think that's hugely important.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's about our time. That's been awesome. Thanks, Luke, for jumping on and just,
so much more to talk about.
Oh, there is. I think we're going to have you on as well. And the other one too, I think we might get you and Tyron Manning on at some point as well, because both you are buyers agents, and we'll have a buyers agent off or so. I think he looks after owner occupiers more. I'm not sure on that, but I'll have a chat with him.
I would be intrigued to see how that all unfolds.
Yeah, I think it'd be a bit of fun if you're up for that, Luke. We've put you,
absolutely.
Just drive the bus. Let's put him on the spot.
I love it. Absolutely love it. We're just working. Like I know prior to this video, you were talking about, is buyers agents all, for the rich people, and we're actually we're working with a client at the moment wants $160,000 property. So it's just it's a service that's available for everyone. You should at least have a conversation with a buyer's agent just to see what their thoughts are around it, what you should do. Talk to a few buyer's agents, and then put together a strategy, and then go and build the team around that particular buyer's agent, mortgage broker, and others to help you along the path. I've been able to grow a portfolio. Just want others to do the same.
Yeah, I like it. And
nice.
Look, I'm a big fan of that. I was always very anti the way the US did things and made fun of, putting extra people in the transaction, until I got over there and actually started to see it in action and realized in Australia we've kind of got it wrong. I think, having two professionals negotiate is absolutely the way it should be when it comes to your biggest asset and your biggest investment.
Yeah,
I love it. Thanks, Luke. Appreciate your time, mate. Thanks for hanging out. I reckon
nice to meet you.
It's time for a JTM.
Yep, cool.
Let's see which rabbit holes we're going down in this episode. It's time for JTM. It's J-Thought moment. It might be drinking whiskey, woodwork, smoking meat, podcasting, story writing, treasure hunting, you name it. What's really grinds my gears, singing, playing TV shows. As you can see, nothing's off limits. It's JTM, J-Thought. project. JTM. It's time for this week's J-Thought moment.
All right.
So this is going to be a fun one, apparently.
It is. It's going to be a genuine JTM. I mean, we're actually on
Wait,
camera.
because all the other ones have been fake?
No, it's not that they've been fake, but like I went down the rabbit hole on this one hard and fast and spent a lot of money and actually got some really cool results from it.
Okay.
Yeah. This all stems from...
Wait, you spent money?
Yeah. Sometimes I do that on a JTM.
I must be confused by the one that we're going to be doing.
I want to live forever.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's on your run sheet. Have you got...
Which I don't have.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, that one's on me. I'll give you the run sheet because it's a JTM that I lived, so you can have that. We're really organised. We're organised. We're all over
No,
it.
you're the one that's organised.
Well, we had to film this JTM segment separate to the real estate segment because obviously we had a guest on. We had the wonderful Luke Moroney on.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're filming it and it's all disjointed.
And we're filming this one a little bit later than what we normally
Yeah,
would.
usually we just roll with it and we, go from one end to the other and it all nice and flows.
Well,
and
this time it literally is because we did one in the daytime and now we're doing one at the night time.
Well, that works. That works too. That works. But this one we kind of went on a JTM and got some cameras for.
Oh, so we're going to talk about that too. How is that tied in with living
It's
forever?
really not. This was a JTM.
Oh, right.
Yeah. All right, living forever. So. This is one, like, I don't want to die, right? Like, no one wants to die, but I kind of feel like I have it to a different level. It's not that I'm afraid of dying, but I really don't want to miss out on what happens after I die. And I also kind of have this chip on my shoulder because, battling PTSD for 21 years as a result of things that were well beyond my control, nothing that I did to cause that, I feel like I was robbed of 20 years of my life. And so therefore I'm like, I want to live forever. The irony of that is a lot of the coping mechanisms I use to survive PTSD, and that's a whole nother episode we'll do, I think, as we gear up to Are You OK Day. But the coping mechanisms I use for that are definitely not going to help me live forever. But I started to discover some of the things that people use, particularly as they're getting on in years, and not to say we're getting on, but as we start to approach our 40s and 50s and
You're
so
already
forth.
in your 40s.
I'm already in my 40s. But, the body starts to decline a bit, just even naturally, no matter how strong you are, no matter how many times a week you're in the gym.
It's not even 40s. As soon as you get to 30, it's all over.
Well, that's what we told all our friends who were like 29,
It's
30,
true.
30. We're like, you're going to wake up the day after your birthday, hungover for the first time
And
of your
how
life.
many times have we been wrong?
Oh,
Even for the most fittest of people.
hilarious. Like, well, Dave Stanton, my strongman coach.
Yep, he
He
didn't
was, I'm
believe
like,
us.
you were going to hurt. He's like, nah, I'm good. And this is with the fittest human on the planet. Literally a day after his 30th birthday, he's like, I've got aches and pains that I've never had before. And I went, yeah, you're 30 now, mate. Welcome to the club.
And the other thing with me, though, is that whenever anyone goes, I'm turning 40 like this year, it's like, no, you're 30 plus 10.
Yeah.
Or another way of looking at it is you're 20 again.
See, I love the one, being an old school gamer, like the OG gamer, reviewing video games back in the early 90s and stuff. I'm a fan of the you didn't get older, you just leveled up.
Yeah, you're leveling up.
I like that one.
Yeah.
But we're rabbit holing and tangenting here. But
It's late.
It's late. I've got a dream. Things could go wild. I went down the rabbit hole of how do I gain back the years that I lost effectively. And I know, like, you can't turn back the clock. As far as we know, there's no such thing as time machines. If there is a time machine and I discover it in the future, we'll come back to this night and wave at us from across the... Yeah, no one's there waving. So, no, there's no such thing as time machines. So all we can really do is kind of reduce our biological age, the wear and tear on our body, because our body does do a lot of amazing healing and things like that if we give it the things it needs to do that, right? And so I stumbled across peptides. Mm-hmm. Now, at the time I stumbled across these, I knew peptides to be illegal in most sports.
Yes,
right?
but there's different types.
Well, I didn't know this at the time. I was of the opinion that these were akin to steroids.
Yep.
Right? And of course, there's not. Your body actually makes its own peptides 24/7, right? And they're effectively just strings of amino acids and the building blocks of proteins.
Yes.
Right? So your body's constantly producing them. But certain ones get produced for certain purposes and can do certain things. And if you give your body the help, the theory is that it will kind of help your body do that better. Which, if
it
you
doesn't
as you get
Benjamin
older,
Button you.
no, it doesn't. Like
You still get
no
old-
wrinkles have disappeared,
You still get older
but the body's able to operate
efficiently.
effectively and efficiently for longer.
Yes.
And that was what really appealed to me.
Yes.
Because I genuinely believe that eventually we're going to have the opportunity to become a digital consciousness.
Yep.
If you've ever seen the show Altered Carbon, I kind of feel that that's probably the best representation of what our future's eventually going to look like and what immortality is eventually
There
going to
was
look
that
like.
one thing that had Jude Law in it. I feel that was sort of along those lines.
I don't think I ever saw that one. Don't know. You'll have to
yeah.
remember what movie that was because I don't remember it. But you've got
I'll
a laptop.
Google it.
You'll Google it. So I was at the same time I sort of discovered what these peptides were and that these are naturally occurring hormones and amino acids and proteins and all this sort of stuff. I was also struggling to lose weight, and we found that my metabolism was shot to hell. And my metabolism had been shot to hell due to 4 years on a specific antidepressant during my battle with PTSD. And one of the side effects of this antidepressant was that, and it was the 1% of the 1%, could have their metabolism reduced significantly as a result. And guess who got to be the 1% of the 1%? Me. So my metabolism got absolutely shot. I could train. I could literally burn the equivalent of 4,000, 5,000 calories in a day, eat 2,500 calories in a day, and I'd gain weight. Or like my body wouldn't burn the fat. And I could do all of the things that all the nutritionists and the dietitians and everything suggested, and I didn't lose any weight. So my coach then said, hey, have you tried a HCG course? It's a peptide course, and gave me a little bit of info, and then recommended this Australian site. Because I was like, at that time, I was like, this seems like steroids, this seems like cheating, like what's the go? And so what it was, and this was kind of my intro to it, and you wrote it with me, like it got rough at times, but it was a course of HCG, which I can't pronounce the full name of, but effectively HCG is a hormone that is produced in the human body. The most common time it's produced is in the first trimester of pregnancy, and what it does is it helps the body metabolize fat for use primarily to support the growing fetus in that first trimester.
I still reckon we should have got you to see if you were pregnant.
Don't worry, I'm going to do another course because we'll get to that in a second.
And side note, so do you want to know the name of the movie that I was thinking of?
Oh no, what is it?
AI.
That's an episode coming up.
Literally.
That's an episode coming up.
Artificial
later.
intelligence.
Yeah. All right.
With Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah, that means nothing to me. Look, you'll show me a picture and I'll go, oh, her, but, I'm terrible with names and faces.
I see dead people.
The little boy.
Yeah.
I see, that's what threw me.
His
Like,
name
it's the Haley.
His name is Haley Joel
Yeah.
Osment.
Well, hey,
Joel Osment.
that's a JTM I want to do, is naming your kid.
Yeah, okay,
Well, anyway.
focus.
Maybe. So I did this HCG course, right? And HCG has a number of benefits that I've become aware of, and very limited to little side effects. That said, always go and check it out yourself. But my understanding as I did my research was it can help increase natural testosterone production. So it encourages your body to produce its own testosterone, number one. Number two, it helps your body metabolize fat. Now, the jury's out. A lot of the stuff I read, like it hasn't been FDA approved in the States and TGA approved here for its treatment for weight loss, because they're like, you'll pair it with an ultra low calorie diet. So like, we're not convinced that the HCG is doing anything because you're eating nothing.
Yeah.
Well, not nothing. Like you're eating 800 calories a day, which I went from eating 3,200 calories a day to 800.
But is that stock standard across all weight, or does it actually factor in as to how much you are starting at?
I believe it's pretty stock standard. Women are about 500 a day, men are 800 a day.
Yeah, see, 500.
It's essentially, so the diet itself, and look, it's not, because at first I had this discussion with Dave, and I'm like, isn't this cheating and all this? And then I kind of got in my own head, and I went, you know what, whatever I've got to do to get the weight off so I can live longer, then that's the smart play, right? Doesn't matter, like, there's no such thing as cheating in real life.
Cheating, well, there is. It's called steroids. That's cheating.
Yeah.
To a certain point. I know that some people are, what do you mean?
But I'm not competing.
No, but that's the
See,
thing.
I'm not competing. This is purely a weight loss thing for me.
There's so many different types of steroids out there, from people being able to breathe right through to bodybuilding.
Yep.
Lolly building.
I'm the one that's drinking, and you're the one that's lolly building.
So, when I talk about that there is cheating, if you don't do it where it's the typical exercise and good healthy diet, where you're not cutting things out, the amount of times that people are like, oh, you need to cut out carbohydrates or cut out dairy. You don't cut stuff out unless, for example, you're lactose intolerant, then cutting out dairy would be a smart thing.
See, and what we learned during this process too, and this is one of the ways we kind of discovered that my metabolism was shot, because I actually went and did a whole heap of DNA testing. I went and had hair follicle testing, as you remember. Like, we spent a fortune on really trying to figure out what my ideal body composition was, what my ideal meal plans were, my macros were. We looked at, what my diet should be. And we found at a DNA level, I'm actually less likely than the average person to lose weight through exercise. But I'm significantly more likely to lose weight on a high protein, low carb diet than the average person, because my DNA makeup, my obviously my ancestors were very much meat eaters, and there wasn't a lot of grains and carbs.
That type of thing does flow into that whole eat right for your blood type. But again, there is a side note of that, of making sure that you double check as to what your gut health is doing, as opposed to just what your blood type is saying. And
that's where the hair follicle DNA testing and the chemical testing that I did came in, right? So we did all this testing to really figure out the baseline, and we did it with professionals as well, right? So the hair follicle test, just so those at home are going, well, Christ, how much did this cost? This sounds like, you spent tens of thousands of dollars. Thankfully, we're not in the US. We're in Australia, where things are reasonably priced in terms of your health. I think it was $300, including the consult, to get the hair follicle test and also get the report back.
Yeah.
The DNA testing I did through Ancestry, so you can go ancestry.com, got that on special, and they'll give you a downloadable text document that is your DNA decoded, and then you can upload that into another site. And there's a number of them. The one I used was xcode.life. And I think it cost me about $130 US, so call it another couple of hundred there for a full DNA health report, makeup, all that kind of base stuff. From there, we realized that, okay, we're now testing and seeing exactly what my makeup is, and I'm still not losing weight. We're analyzing your metabolism shot, right? GP's coming and got metabolism shot. So we've gone, all right, we've got to do something. And that's where the peptides came in. And I went to, there's a company in Australia that is run by doctors, and they actually do a check on you first. Like, you've got to go through a questionnaire to make sure that you don't have any pre-existing conditions that could conflict or cause issues or anything like that. It's called Regen Med Direct, I believe it is. I'll double check that to make sure I'm giving the right one. So I went through that, and they approved me for this HCG course. Now, I lost 16 kilos in 6 weeks.
Yes, I'm aware.
And that was awesome. And holy hell did it do wonders for my headspace and my confidence. Now, I have put back half of that weight, but I haven't put back half of that weight. Like, it's now 10 months since I did it, I think.
It would be
9
about
months.
that, yeah.
I've put half of it back on in that time, but it is 100% because my alcohol intake after I finished, and I was great. I stayed stable, even lost a little bit more weight after that 6 weeks, and I was great for about 3-4 months. Then suddenly our life got stressful, and I went back to my old habits. So the weight that I've put back on is not rebound because my body's going from starvation to, oh, we can eat again, and that. It's 100% I went back to bad habits.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons I'm going to go back through a HCG course again, because
I want to give it a go just to see.
Yeah, I mean, we can do it. I think the course cost me about $500 for the whole thing, and I used the injectables because this is often you can do via the tablets, but I went injectable, and the reason I went injectable is because I hate needles, and bear with me, no, it's if I'm going to inject myself twice every morning for the next 3 weeks, then I'm going to stick to it because you've got to drink 4 to 5 litres of water a day, which is no easy feat. You've got to drink 2 to 4 cups of green tea a day, again, no easy feat. You're allowed, as a male, I was allowed 250 grams of protein off a set list, so it was beef, fish, etc., and a handful of one vegetable that came off a list, and there were no carbs in there whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I was allowed 2 of those meals a day. I was allowed 2 green apples a day, and that was literally it. So, and food has always been my weakness. So in order to make sure that I stuck to the diet and made this work, I chose the most painful option because my mindset then became, if I've got to jab myself twice every morning.
Yeah, I don't want to be back here again.
I don't want to be back here again. I'm not going to cheat on this diet.
So it was positive, negative, positive or negative reinforcement. It's a weird those.
Yeah, one of those. I don't know. It was manipulating myself to make sure that I stayed true.
Yeah.
And like there's a prep week leading up to it and all that sort of stuff. What I found, and I think this is the big thing that, because I've known others who have gone through it, and the point that they have crashed at and sort of fallen off the wagon is day 8, 9, and 10, right? And it was scary for you with me going through day 8, 9, and 10 because it's at day 8 that all of the withdrawals kicked in for me. So carbohydrate withdrawal, alcohol withdrawal, because we did this at the end of that COVID period, right? Just as the world was starting to open back up again. So I'd been drinking heavily for 2 years throughout COVID. Sugar withdrawals.
You realise that if you did it only 9 months ago, that's 2022.
Yeah. So the world started opening because it was just after my first trip, which was the June. I went back to the States in the June, I think it was, or the June, July. That was my first trip back to the States since COVID. So, and
right.
I did it.
I
did
thought
it
you
after
meant
that.
like, right. So you're meaning international borders.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So yeah, going through sugar, carb, alcohol withdrawal simultaneously was murder. And I've mentioned about 21 years of PTSD for everyone at home and listening in. During that 21 years, I had 3 suicidal events, shall we say. Not necessarily attempts, but days where I went, today's the day, and I'm done. I'm out.
Yep.
The 3 days, day 8, 9, and 10, was worse than anything that I'd experienced in 21 years of PTSD. And I think the only reason I got through it the way that I did was because I knew 100% that it was withdrawals and that I just had to grip my teeth and get through it. And I said to you at one point, I think I came to you and I said, I've had 6 suicidal ideations today. I don't want you to worry. I'm not at risk, but this is how bad it is going through these withdrawals. And I'm going to put myself into bed until these pass because it's just, I can't cope.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I put myself in bed for 3 days. So that's the, the caveat, I guess.
Yeah.
The big red flag that I'd
yeah. And honestly, if you are thinking about doing it and you are inclined, I don't want to say inclined because it's like as though you have an option not to be, where, you have previously been diagnosed with depression and stuff, make sure that you definitely
put your support networks in place.
Yeah.
Be mentally prepared for it.
Also, if you are starting to do the whole, I'm not feeling good, I know that this is just like I'm feeling fine.
Well,
but mentally I'm not good.
Yeah.
Let someone know. Like you had that realization. Hold on, this is detox. This is my body just going, hold on, you're flicking a switch and I don't feel like I'm in control.
Something too, like I mean, we've tried to record in advance the Are You OK Day stuff and talk about my story in the past, and we haven't got an episode we're happy with yet, and we'll re-record. But I remember on one of the recordings that never made it to see the light of day, we talked about how, for me, the feeling of depression is something I feel in my stomach, and it's almost identical, like identical twin, where maybe there's 3 freckles different on the cheek or something, to severe hunger.
Yes.
So going through withdrawals, which triggers that depression, at the same time as going through a dietary thing where you've massively dropped your calories. Now, the thing is, the HCG is metabolizing the fat, so you don't feel hungry at any other time. It's just literally those 3 days where you're going through withdrawal. And for me, that depression in the stomach and it being so akin to hunger for me in terms of a feeling, it's one of the reasons why I've always been an emotional eater. It made it hell.
Yeah.
And so I would say to anyone, be prepared for the withdrawals. Know they'll pass. If this is something, if you need to lose weight, if you're desperate to do it, for whatever reason you choose to go this path, be aware there are going to be withdrawals. The withdrawals are going to be hell, but they will pass.
Yeah.
And once I went through that, getting back to the comment about, I was really, it's cheating, right? It's not cheating.
No.
The hell, if you do a 6-month or 12-month diet, you kind of spread the hell out. If you do this, you kind of jam the hell into this really short window. It's the same amount of hell. It's just more intense.
I don't like the word diet.
I hate diet.
Eating plan? Meal plan? The thing with diet is normally you put someone on a diet to either get ready for surgery or once they've come out of surgery, or something drastic has gone on where that's all that person, those types of things that person can eat.
Yeah.
That is their diet. Whereas a meal plan, it's like, here's what you should be eating. All of these things.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I looked at this as a program. I keep using the word diet because it's the easy word to use, but it was a program. It was a weight loss program. And it was a weight loss program supported by peptides.
Yeah.
In order to assist that.
I know that there's a lot of people out there going, oh my God, you put yourself through absolute crap.
Yeah.
And there's probably some people out there going, oh my God, that's like the worst thing you could have done.
Yeah, probably. But you know what? It was the first thing that worked for losing weight for me in 8 years.
Yeah.
And considering that I'm someone who at that point was in the gym 4 times a week, lifting heavy weights, I was walking regularly, I would go through periods of 6-8 weeks where I was eating incredibly well and still not losing weight. And I had nutritionists and that looking at going, why aren't you losing weight? At the end of the day, this is the thing that worked, and it seemed to reset my metabolism. I can now control my weight based on the amount of water I drink.
I always thought it was like 6 months. I was always under the impression that if you got to 6 months and nothing was changing, then there's a serious question, especially if there has been people that have been on medications. I'd
done these programs for 6 months, 12 months. It had been it had been an 8-9 year battle by that point.
Yeah.
And we got to that point where it was your metabolism's not working.
Yeah.
But
so this?
That's kind of serious.
I'm going to try and say this. It's probably really long,
good luck.
really bad. Epitalons?
Epitalons?
Epitalons. I was close.
I may not even be pronouncing it right. I'm going to type it in to make sure I am because I
Epitalons?
Epitalon. Yeah. So there's some really cool studies that have been done.
Sorry. Epitalones.
Epitalons. There's some really cool studies that have been done into what causes humans to age, right? And what they've found is there's this thing that effectively, in layman's terms, and I can only pronounce it in layman's terms or talk about it in layman's terms because I'm not a scientist, but there's a cap.
You are a layman?
Oh, that's it. There's a cap on our cell DNA. So as with every cell we create, it's got DNA code in it. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that code, if you imagine it's a straight line, there's a cap, right? And the length of that cap sends signals or is read by the body and different other cells around it as a cue card for what should and shouldn't be working. And as that cap gets shorter, it causes the body to send signals to start shutting down different functions and parts of the body, or to deteriorate effectively.
Yeah.
And so the theory is if we can increase that cap, right?
We can Benjamin Button ourselves.
We can at least internally
No, 'cause
prevent the aging and deterioration
when you think
of
about
bodily
it, when
function.
Benjamin Button was at his oldest on the outside, he was actually the youngest.
Yes. So
So-
okay. So fair. All right. You're being literal. I'll pay that. I like it. So look, again, this is another one. The FDA is like, this could be hokum. We haven't really
Yeah,
decided.
but let's
edgeways.
face it, America also doesn't like people getting healthier.
I'm not going. That is a rabbit hole. I'm not touching with a 40-foot pole. But from my perspective, I looked into it, and even the FDA went, "There's no side effects to this."
Yeah.
Right. You could just burn some cash, and I kind of went, if I can lengthen the caps on my DNA
Yeah.
and in the cell, and I can stop the deterioration of certain bodily functions and things like that, and elongate my life that way and my health that way, then why not give it a crack?
Yeah.
And so you do pretty much one course of it a year or something is what they recommend, I think, at the moment. And again, it's through Regen Med Direct. And at the same time, I picked up some nootropics as well to get the brain functioning again properly and all that sort of
Just
jazz.
the brain functioning.
Well, just to counter my executive dysfunction being Asperger's, right? Like that's where it came from. So yeah, these epitalons, they talk about, so what they increase, they lengthen the telomeres, telomeres in human cells, which are the cap on the cell DNA, right? Also, helps with things like sleep, which, let's be honest, sleep's the great cleaner and fixes the body. As
Sorry, I
yawns,
just yawned.
I mentioned sleep, she starts yawning. So delays and prevents age-related diseases such as cancer, heart disease, dementia. These are all the claims, right, that are out there. They've been tested. I wouldn't say they've been proven, but the early results are good. And as we know, like FDA, TGA, all that, depending on what country you are, they'll take 10, 15, 20 years before they'll green light something. But because in my research, there was no side effects, it was a case of you might just lose your money. I was like, you know what, it's worth giving a crack. So that's what I did. And that was Regen Med Direct as well. So that's, I'm slowly
You'll have to make
adjusting
sure
my
that
diet.
you put the links up into the actual podcast.
Yeah, it's just regenmeddirect.com.au.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how many times you say it. You'll need to put the link up.
We'll put the links up. But, look, for all I know, it's all hokum. I've been taken for a ride. But I at least feel positive about it. And I lost the weight, and I'm willing to do it again.
Do you know what? I look at it and go, if you've lost weight and you feel like it's done something, then even still, you've learnt something about your body.
Yeah.
Which means that when it comes to making decisions in the future about your body, you're going to be more aware.
Hopefully.
Which means if you're more knowledgeable about your own body, when someone goes, "Oh, you should be taking this," you can be like, "Nah, it's good."
Yeah.
Like I already know what my body's needing. But thank you for the advice.
That's that whole DNA process, that whole nutritional hair follicle. Like I know what my body needs and everything like that. And in all fairness, I haven't given it what it needs over the last 18 months, 2 years since we did the study, on this journey. What I've done so far is the HCG course and the epitalons and the nootropics and stuff like that. I am now starting to shift towards that, more of that DNA diet. And I've used AI, like I've plugged in all what my body needs are into AI to help me build meal
who'd
plans
have
and shit
thought that you can actually help to heal your body via food?
I know, right? Like this is your soapbox, but I'm scared of this soapbox because people get fiery about it.
Oh, it's just more of, Eastern medicine's been using it for thousands of years. And one thing that any acupuncturist will tell you is your food that you put in your mouth can help. Like, I'm not saying that it can actually cure cancer. Please don't think that I'm saying that, because oncologists definitely have their position.
But as a preventative thing.
As a way of making sure that you can protect yourself against viruses that get into your gut. If you have leaky gut, you can do something about it. Like,
Yeah.
and I know that you're going, leaky gut,
I
what?
don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
So all I'm saying
sounds bad.
is that you know, like you have the capabilities of really making sure that the food that you put into your mouth and the things you put into your mouth are actually what your body needs, and also that your body can actually process it. Because if it can't process it, you're just shoving stuff in there for the sake of doing it.
I know for me, like, it's easy. I think in this society, we're all a little bit quick fixy. Like,
Yes.
we want that quick fix. And the interesting thing for me is taking Epitalon, for example, feels like quick. It's pop a pill and supposedly this thing happens. Or the HCG, you know, you can pop a pill, but obviously I took injections, and that was another reason I wanted to take the injections. I wanted the pain because I wanted to ensure that the price I made sure the price I paid was worth it, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, these things kind of act as a springboard. Like, I'm eating healthier now than what I did before I did that course. Even though I've fallen back into bad habits, it's not as bad as it once was.
No, I can definitely vouch for.
So, you know, it's not always you know, you flick a switch.
No.
But these things that we look at and go, oh, that's cheating or whatever, sometimes that's just the crowbar that helps lead you onto a better path. You know, and it's that little step by little step. And for me, I've always, not always, but for a lot of things, I've either needed that epiphany moment, or I've needed that crowbar, that bridging tool, that's allowed me to do that. And sometimes that's meant that, you know, doing a peptide course in this particular case. But, you know, sometimes you need that strapping tape on your ankle, or you need, you know, whatever it is that just helps you get your mind right, and you use that as a tool to leverage into that better, happier space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think on that note, I hope people have learnt something, and
hopefully it was interesting.
Hopefully, look, you know, if anyone ever has a question, or, you know, wants to really go down the rabbit hole with you.
Oh, look,
you know,
I'm always willing to go down a rabbit hole.
Look, if there's anyone out there who is right into that DNA, like, diet explanation, if you're a doctor and you're like, this is really interesting, I want to talk about this more, this is my kind of person that I want to talk to, send us a DM. Be happy to sort it out.
Yeah, have you as a guest, like, because I don't know anywhere near enough on this topic. I'm literally just talking anecdotes and stuff that I've experienced myself and gone through myself and read myself. I'm by no means an expert. I would love an expert to come on and have a chat with me, and that would be good fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's always there, so if you want to.
All right. Well, I think that does it. Quick shout out to Luke Moroney as well. Thanks for jumping on the podcast on the front segment and filling us in on what buyers agents do. And I hope this second segment has been interesting. And I genuinely hope I find a way to live long enough that I can digitize my consciousness and live forever.